Emily Morgan stared at the shattered remains of her grandmother's china vase scattered across the hardwood floor. It had been in the family for 3 generations, a wedding gift to her grandmother from her grandfather in 1952. Now it lay in pieces, just like everything else in the Morgan household. "I told you to be careful." Emily's voice echoed through the living room, her hands shaking as she knelt to pick up the larger fragments. Her son, 17-year-old Jason, stood frozen in place, his basketball tucked under his arm. "It was an accident, Mom," Jason muttered, not meeting her eyes. "I barely touched it." Emily looked up at him, her face flushed with anger and exhaustion. Ever since her husband Mark had moved out 6 months ago, she'd been holding everything together by the thinnest of threads. Working overtime at the hospital as a nurse, making sure bills were paid, trying to keep some semblance of normalcy for Jason and his 14-year-old sister, Lily. The vase was just a thing, she knew that, but it felt like the final straw. Just like it was an accident when you stayed out until 3 a.m. last weekend. Emily stood up, fragments clutched in her palm. Or when your math teacher called about your failing grades. Or the dent in the car you didn't bother to mention. Jason's expression hardened. "Here we go again. I said I was sorry about the vase. What more do you want?" "I want you to care, Jason. About something, anything." Emily's voice cracked. "Ever since your father left, don't bring Dad into this." Jason cut her off, his voice cold. "This isn't about him." But it was about Mark, and they both knew it. His absence hung in every room of the house like a ghost. The divorce proceedings were getting uglier by the week, with Mark demanding half of everything despite being the one who'd cheated with his 26-year-old assistant. Now he lived across town in a sleek apartment with Becca, while Emily struggled to keep their suburban Boston home from falling into foreclosure. The front door opened, and Lily walked in, her backpack slung over one shoulder. She took one look at the scene, the broken vase, Emily's red-rimmed eyes, Jason's defensive stance, and sighed. "What happened now?" she asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. "Just another day in the Morgan family meltdown." "Nothing," Jason muttered, pushing past her toward the stairs. "Mom's overreacting as usual. Don't walk away from me when I'm talking to you." Emily called after him, but the only response was the slam of his bedroom door. Lily set her backpack down and knelt beside Emily, quietly helping to pick up the remaining pieces. "It's okay, Mom. It's just a vase." Emily wiped at a tear with the back of her hand. "It was Grandma's." "I know," Lily said softly, "but she wouldn't want you to cry over it." Emily studied her daughter's face, so young, yet so thoughtful. Lily had always been the peacemaker, even as a small child. Now, at 14, she was trying to be the glue holding their fractured family together, a role no child should have to play. "When did you become so wise?" Emily asked, attempting a smile. Lily shrugged. "Someone has to be." The unspoken accusation hung in the air. Emily was failing them both, too caught up in her own pain and anger to be the mother they needed. She gathered the fragments into a dustpan and emptied them into the trash, each piece making a final, hollow sound as it hit the bottom of the bin. "Dad called me today," Lily said casually, washing her hands at the kitchen sink. "He wanted to know if we're still on for this weekend." Emily's jaw tightened. It was Mark's weekend with the kids according to their temporary custody arrangement, but he'd canceled the last 2 visits with flimsy excuses about work emergencies. Each time, she'd had to comfort Lily while Jason pretended not to care, though she'd later find him staring at old family photos when he thought no one was looking. "Did he now?" Emily kept her tone neutral for Lily's sake. "And what did you tell him?" "That we'd be ready." Lily dried her hands on a dish towel. "He promised he'd take us to the Science Museum. Jason won't admit it, but he wants to go." Emily nodded, swallowing the bitter remarks that threatened to spill out. Mark had always been the fun parent, the one who took them on adventures while she managed the daily grind of homework, doctor appointments, and household chores. Now he got a sweep in for weekend highlights while she dealt with the emotional fallout of his absence. "That sounds nice, honey." Emily managed to keep her voice steady. "I've got a double shift on Saturday anyway." Lily studied her mother's face. "You're working too much, Mom." "Bills don't pay themselves," Emily replied, attempting a light tone that fell flat. Their savings had been depleted by legal fees, and Mark was fighting her on alimony despite his 6-figure income as a financial advisor. The sound of Jason's music thudded through the ceiling, bass heavy enough to rattle the light fixtures. Another form of rebellion. another way to drown out the tension that filled their home. Emily's phone buzzed with a text from her sister Kate. "Still on for dinner tonight? You need a break." Kate had been Emily's lifeline through the separation, offering a shoulder to cry on and practical help with the kids. Emily texted back a quick, "Yes, 7 p.m., before turning back to Lily. "Listen, about your brother. He's hurting, Mom," Lily interrupted. "He won't say it, but he is. Last night, I heard him on the phone with Dad, and they were arguing. I think Dad canceled their plans to watch the Celtics game together." Emily felt a pang of sympathy for her son, quickly followed by fresh anger at Mark. How dare he disappoint their children again? She made a mental note to call her lawyer tomorrow. The custody hearings were next month, and Mark's pattern of unreliability needed to be documented. The doorbell rang, startling them both. Through the window, Emily spotted Mark's silver BMW in the driveway. He wasn't due to pick up the kids until Friday, 2 days away. "It's Dad," Lily said, already moving toward the door. Emily smoothed her hair and straightened her shoulders, preparing for battle. Whatever Mark wanted, she wouldn't let him see how close she was to breaking. Mark Morgan stood in the entryway, his normally impeccable appearance slightly disheveled. His blue dress shirt was wrinkled, and dark circles shadowed his eyes. He glanced nervously past Lily to where Emily stood, arms crossed defensively across her chest. "I need to talk to you," he said to Emily, his voice strained. "Both of you," he added, nodding toward the stairs where Jason had appeared, drawn by the sound of his father's voice. Emily's instinct was to refuse, to tell him whatever it was could wait until Friday, but something in Mark's expression gave her pause. This wasn't the confident, slightly smug Mark who showed up for court hearings with his expensive lawyer. This was a man who looked like he hadn't slept in days. "Fine," she said curtly. Living room. The four of them gathered awkwardly in the space where they'd once watched movies together, celebrated birthdays, and opened Christmas presents. Now it felt like a formal meeting room, with Emily and the kids on the sofa, while Mark perched uncomfortably on the edge of the armchair. "What's this about, Dad?" Jason asked, his tone somewhere between hopeful and guarded. "If it's about the Celtics game, it's not about the game," Mark interrupted. He ran a hand through his graying hair. "I'm sorry about canceling, but something's happened." He took a deep breath. "Becca's pregnant." The silence that followed was absolute. Emily felt as if all the air had been sucked from the room. Beside her, Lily went very still while Jason jumped to his feet. "Are you kidding me?" Jason's voice cracked with fury. "You're having a baby with her?" Mark flinched. "Jason, I know this is a shock. A shock." Emily found her voice at last, a harsh laugh escaping her. "That's what you call it? You've been gone 6 months, and already you're starting a new family." "It wasn't planned," Mark said weakly. "Nothing ever is with you, is it?" Emily's hands were shaking again, but this time with rage rather than sadness. "Just like it wasn't planned when you slept with your assistant, or when you decided our 15-year marriage wasn't worth fighting for." Mark looked down at his hands. "I deserve that." "You deserve a lot worse," Emily snapped. Lily stood up suddenly. "I'm going to my room." Her face was pale, her expression unreadable as she headed for the stairs. "Lily, wait," Mark called after her. "Please, I wanted you to hear this from me, not through gossip. I know it's a lot to process." Lily turned, and Emily was startled to see tears streaming down her daughter's face. Lily, who had been so strong, so composed through everything. "When were you going to tell us about moving to Chicago?" Lily's voice was barely above a whisper. Emily's head snapped toward Mark. "What?" Mark shot an accusatory glance at Lily. "How did you?" "I saw the email on your phone last weekend," Lily said. "About the transfer to the Chicago office. You're leaving Massachusetts. Were you even going to tell us? Or just disappear?" Jason stared at his father in disbelief. "You're moving away?" Mark stood up, his face flushed. "This isn't how I wanted to explain this. Yes, the firm offered me a position in Chicago. It's a promotion, a fresh start. Becca and I thought that you'd abandon your children." Emily's voice was dangerously quiet. "Again, I'm not abandoning anyone." Mark's composure finally cracked. "This is exactly why I didn't want to tell you yet. You always twist everything to make me the villain. You're moving 1,000 miles away from your kids. How else should I interpret that?" Emily fired back. Jason let out a harsh laugh. "Like you even care, Dad. You've canceled on us like 5 times in the last 2 months. That's not fair, Jason. I've been dealing with a lot." "Yeah, Like knocking up your girlfriend and planning to leave the state, Jason cut in. Good priorities, Dad. Mark's face reddened. Watch your language, young man. I'm still your father. Could have fooled me, Jason muttered, turning to follow Lily upstairs. Jason, Mark called after him, but the only response was another slammed door. Mark turned to Emily, his expression a mix of frustration and guilt. This isn't how I wanted this conversation to go. What did you expect? Emily asked, genuinely curious. Congratulations? Our blessing for you to move halfway across the country with your pregnant girlfriend. I expected some basic respect and understanding, Mark said. This job is a huge opportunity. I can provide better child support, better. It's not about money, Mark? Emily interrupted. It's about being present. You've already missed half of Lily's soccer games this season. Jason's on academic probation and acting out because his father walked out on our family. They need you here, not sending checks from Chicago. Mark sank back into the armchair. The kids can visit during school breaks. We'll have plenty of space. Becca found this great house in Winnetka with a pool, and he stopped at the look on Emily's face. What? Are you even listening to yourself? Emily asked quietly. You're talking about occasional visits like there's some kind of bonus. These are your children, not timeshare properties. That's not fair, Mark protested. You know I love them. Do I? Emily stood up, needing to move, to do something with the anger coursing through her. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're building a shiny new life and treating Jason and Lily like inconvenient reminders of your past. Mark's expression hardened. You're poisoning them against me. You're doing that all by yourself? Emily replied. She walked to the window, staring out at the yard where she and Mark had once pushed the kids on a tire swing. When are you moving? Next month, Mark admitted. Right after the school year ends. Emily turned back to him, stunned. That's soon? And you're just telling us now? I was waiting for the right time, Mark said defensively. There is no right time to tell your children you're abandoning them. Emily shot back. Mark stood up abruptly. I'm not doing this with you right now. You're too emotional to have a rational conversation. It was the same dismissive tone he'd used during their marriage whenever they argued, making her feel hysterical, unreasonable. Emily felt her cheeks burn with familiar humiliation, followed quickly by resolve. She wasn't that woman anymore. I'll be filing for full custody, she said calmly. Given your plans to move out of state and your pattern of canceling visitations, I don't think even your expensive lawyer can argue for joint custody. Mark's face paled. You can't do that. Watch me. Emily walked to the front door and held it open. I think you should leave. The kids need time to process this, and frankly, so do I. Mark hesitated, glancing toward the stairs. I should talk to them more, explain. Not today, Emily said firmly. You've done enough damage for one afternoon. After Mark left, Emily leaned against the closed door, trying to steady her breathing. A baby. Chicago. It was all too much. How was she going to help Jason and Lily through this, when she could barely process it herself? Upstairs, she could hear muffled voices, Jason and Lily talking in one of their rooms. At least they had each other. Emily pulled out her phone and called her sister. Kate? It's me. I know we had dinner plans, but something's happened. Can you come over now instead? 20 minutes later, Kate arrived with a bottle of wine and a sympathetic ear. As Emily relayed Mark's bombshell announcements, her sister's expression shifted from shock to outrage. What a selfish bastard, Kate muttered, pouring them each a generous glass of Merlot. Have you talked to your lawyer yet? I'll call her first thing tomorrow, Emily said, taking a long sip. God, Kate, what am I going to do? The kids are devastated. Kate reached across the kitchen table to squeeze her hand. You're going to do what you've been doing, taking care of your family. And we're all going to help you. The courthouse was a hulking structure of gray stone and imposing columns. Nothing like the cozy wedding chapel where Emily and Mark had exchanged their vows 16 years earlier. Emily smoothed down her navy blue skirt suit, bought on sale and slightly too big, and tried to project a confidence she didn't feel. Beside her, her lawyer Sandra Green reviewed documents one last time while they waited for the judge to return with his decision. Across the aisle, Mark sat with his attorney, a sharp-featured man in a suit that probably cost more than Emily made in a month. Mark kept checking his watch, clearly anxious to get this over with. Next to him, Becca sat with her hands folded protectively over her slightly rounded belly, looking uncomfortable in the formal setting. The past 3 weeks since Mark's announcement had been a blur of lawyer meetings, tearful nights, and increasingly difficult behavior from Jason. Lily had withdrawn into herself, spending most of her time at her best friend Zoe's house. The custody hearing had been moved up at Sandra's insistence, given Mark's imminent relocation. All rise, the bailiff announced as Judge Harmon returned to the bench. Emily stood on shaky legs, her heart hammering so loudly she was sure everyone could hear it. The judge, a stern-faced woman in her 60s, settled into her chair and surveyed the room. In the matter of custody for Jason and Lily Morgan, Judge Harmon began. I've reviewed all the evidence and testimonies presented. This case presents several complexities, most notably the father's planned relocation to Chicago, Illinois. She paused, looking directly at Mark. Mr. Morgan, while the court recognizes your right to pursue career opportunities, we must prioritize the well-being and stability of the minor children. Emily felt a flicker of hope at the judge's tone. Given that both children are established in their current school district, have extensive social connections in Boston, and have expressed a preference to remain in their current home, the court grants primary physical custody to Mrs. Emily Morgan. Emily's legs nearly gave out with relief. Sandra squeezed her arm in silent congratulation. However, the judge continued, Mr. Morgan will retain joint legal custody and is granted visitation rights to include 1 weekend per month in Boston, to be arranged at his expense, plus half of all school breaks and 4 weeks during summer vacation. Mark's attorney leaned over to whisper something to him, but Mark brushed him off, his expression unreadable. Furthermore, Judge Harmon said, given Mr. Morgan's substantial income relative to Mrs. Morgan's, child support is set at the amount outlined in Document 14B, with additional provisions for medical expenses and college savings contributions. As the judge detailed the financial arrangements, Emily barely listened. Primary custody. The children would stay with her. They wouldn't be shuttled to Chicago like occasional visitors in their father's new life. After the final gavel fell, Emily stood in the courthouse hallway with Sandra, discussing next steps. It's a good outcome, Emily, Sandra assured her. The support amount is fair, and keeping the kids in Boston means maintaining their routine and stability. Emily nodded, still processing. What about his visitation? Can he just cancel whenever he wants like he's been doing? The order specifically states he must give 14 days notice for any schedule changes, Sandra explained. If he establishes a pattern of cancellations, we can petition for a modification. Emily spotted Mark walking toward them, having sent Becca ahead to the parking lot. She stiffened, but Sandra patted her shoulder reassuringly. I'll give you two a moment, her lawyer said, stepping away. Mark stopped a few feet from Emily, hands in his pockets. For a moment, neither spoke, the weight of their new reality settling between them. So, Mark finally said, I guess you got what you wanted. Emily bristled at his tone. This isn't about winning or losing, Mark. It's about what's best for Jason and Lily. And you think barely seeing their father is what's best for them? His voice was low, angry. You're the one moving to Chicago, Emily reminded him. And for what it's worth, I didn't ask the judge to restrict your time with them. You can see them once a month, plus holidays and summer. She paused, studying his face. If you actually show up. Mark flinched. I know I've canceled a few times, 7. You've canceled 7 visits in 6 months, Emily corrected him. Do you know what that does to them? Jason pretends he doesn't care, but he does. And Lily, she sits by the window waiting for you. Something shifted in Mark's expression, a flicker of shame, perhaps. I'll do better. With the new job, my schedule will be more predictable. I hope so, Emily said, meaning it despite everything. They need you, Mark. Not your money, not occasional visits. They need to know their father cares enough to be present. Mark nodded slowly. Are they? How are they taking the news? About the baby, about Chicago? Emily sighed. How do you think? Jason's failing 2 classes and got suspended last week for fighting. Lily barely talks anymore. She hadn't meant to unload on him, but the words tumbled out. They feel replaced, Mark. Like they weren't enough for you. That's not true, Mark protested. I love them. This move, the promotion, it's all to provide for them too. Then tell them that, Emily said. Not me. They're the ones who need to hear it. Across the lobby, Emily spotted Jason and Lily sitting with her sister Kate, who had brought them to hear the judge's decision. Jason was slumped in his chair, earbuds in and hood up, while Lily absently flipped through a magazine. "They're here," Mark asked, following her gaze. "I didn't think you'd bring them." "They wanted to come," Emily replied. "It's their lives too." She hesitated, then added more gently, "You should talk to them before you leave." Mark nodded, straightening his tie nervously. Together, they walked across the lobby. Kate saw them first, standing and giving Emily a questioning look. Emily nodded slightly. "It was okay, Dad," Lily said, noticing him. She set aside her magazine, her expression guarded. Jason looked up, pulling out one earbud, but not both. His standard teenage compromise between listening and maintaining an air of indifference. "Hey guys," Mark said awkwardly. "I thought maybe we could grab lunch. Talk about things." "What's there to talk about?" Jason muttered. "You're moving to Chicago with your new family." Message received. "Jason," Emily said quietly, "give your father a chance." Jason glared at her, betrayal evident in his eyes. "Seriously, Mom? You're defending him now." "I'm not defending anyone," Emily said. "But he's still your father." Kate touched Emily's arm. "Why don't I take Lily to that cafe across the street for a hot chocolate? Give you three some space to talk." Emily nodded gratefully. Lily seemed reluctant, but went with her aunt after Emily assured her they'd join them soon. Once they were alone, Mark sat beside Jason, who edged away slightly. "The judge gave your mom primary custody," Mark said quietly. "But I'll still see you guys once a month here in Boston, plus holidays and part of the summer." "Great," Jason said flatly. "Pencil us in between your important meetings and baby stuff." Mark winced. "Jason, I know you're angry. You don't know anything about me." Jason cut in, finally pulling out his other earbud. "If you did, you wouldn't be moving 1,000 miles away." "I don't have a choice about the transfer," Mark began, but Emily cut him off with a sharp look. "Yes, you do," she said firmly. "We always have choices, Mark." Mark fell silent, then nodded slowly. "You're right." He turned back to Jason. "I do have a choice, and I'm making the wrong one." "I'm sorry." Jason looked up, clearly startled by the admission. "I've been selfish," Mark continued. "When your mom and I split up, I was lost. Becca and this job offer, they felt like a fresh start. But I've been so focused on my new beginning that I haven't thought enough about what it means for you and Lily." "Whatever," Jason mumbled, but Emily could see he was listening now. "It's not whatever," Mark said, his voice thick with emotion. "You and Lily are the most important people in my life. I need to show you that, not just say it." He took a deep breath. "I'm going to talk to my firm about postponing the transfer, maybe working remotely part-time from Boston." Jason's head snapped up. "For real?" "For real," Mark confirmed. "I can't promise they'll agree, but I'm going to try. And if they won't compromise, I'll look for something else here." Emily stared at him in disbelief. "Mark, are you serious? What about Becca and the baby?" "Becca can relocate too," Mark said, running a hand through his hair. "Or, I don't know. We'll figure something out. But I can't move away from my kids. Not now." For the first time in months, Emily saw genuine remorse in her ex-husband's eyes. It didn't erase what he'd done, but it was a start. Jason seemed to be processing Mark's words, skepticism warring with hope on his face. "What about the baby?" he finally asked. "The baby complicates things," Mark admitted. "But half-siblings shouldn't be strangers. Whatever happens with Becca and me, that baby will be part of all our lives. I want you and Lily to know your brother or sister." Jason nodded slowly, still not entirely convinced, but at least listening. "We should join Lily and Kate," Emily suggested gently. "Lily needs to hear this too." As they crossed the street to the cafe, Emily felt a cautious sense of hope. Today hadn't fixed everything, not by a long shot. The Morgan family was still broken, still healing. But for the first time since Mark had walked out, she could envision a future where they might find a new way to be a family, fractured but not completely torn apart. Inside the cafe, Lily looked up from her hot chocolate, whipped cream dotting her upper lip. At the sight of all three of them together, walking in side by side, a tentative smile crossed her face. It was a small thing, that smile. But in that moment, it felt enormous. 2 weeks after the custody hearing, Emily found herself in the unfamiliar position of waiting for Mark to arrive, on time and as planned. He'd called the night before to confirm he'd pick up the kids for their weekend visit, the first since his surprising decision to rethink the Chicago move. The kitchen clock ticked toward 9 in the morning as she poured herself a second cup of coffee, wondering if this newfound reliability would last. Is Dad actually coming? Jason leaned against the doorframe, trying to sound nonchalant despite the duffel bag packed and ready at his feet. He said he would, Emily replied carefully. She'd spent the past 2 weeks tempering the kids' expectations while honoring Mark's apparent change of heart. He should be here any minute. Jason nodded, checking his phone again. Lily's still fixing her hair. She's been in the bathroom for like an hour. Emily smiled faintly. It was the first time Lily had shown any interest in her appearance in months. Let her take her time. It's good to see her excited about something. The doorbell rang, and Jason's attempt at casual indifference vanished. He straightened up, then immediately slouched again, as if remembering his role as the disaffected teenager. Emily squeezed his shoulder as she passed, appreciating his transparency despite everything. Mark stood on the doorstep holding 2 gift bags and looking uncharacteristically nervous. "Morning," he said, offering a hesitant smile. "I'm not late, am I?" "Right on time," Emily assured him, stepping aside to let him in. She noticed he was alone. "No Becca today?" Mark shook his head. "I thought it should be just me and the kids this time. She's actually in Chicago looking at houses." At Emily's raised eyebrow, he quickly added, "Just as a backup plan. The firm's giving me 3 months to work remotely while we figure things out." Emily nodded, processing this information. So the Chicago move wasn't entirely off the table, just delayed. Before she could respond, Lily appeared at the top of the stairs, her hair neatly braided and her face brightened by what looked like a hint of borrowed mascara. "Dad," she called, her voice a mixture of excitement and lingering caution. "You're here." "Of course I am, sweetheart," Mark replied. "I've been looking forward to it all week." Lily descended the stairs and accepted her father's awkward hug. Jason hovered nearby, offering a stiff nod when Mark turned to him. "Hey, Dad." "Hey, buddy," Mark said warmly, seemingly unfazed by Jason's cool reception. "Ready for the Science Museum? I heard they've got a new space exploration exhibit." "I guess," Jason shrugged, but Emily caught the flash of interest in his eyes. Space had been his passion since elementary school, something Mark should have remembered but rarely acknowledged anymore. Mark handed each of them a gift bag. "Just a little something for today." Lily pulled out a soft blue scarf with silver threads running through it. "It's beautiful, Dad." "Thanks." Jason's bag contained a Boston Celtics cap, an olive branch after the canceled game. He turned it over in his hands, his expression softening slightly. "Thanks," he mumbled, placing it on his head. Emily watched this exchange with mixed emotions. Part of her was happy to see Mark making an effort, while another part couldn't help but wonder if expensive gifts were just an easy substitute for consistent parenting. "The museum closes at 6, Emily reminded them. "And Lily has homework to finish before Monday. We'll be back by 7, Mark promised. "I've made dinner reservations at that Italian place near the harbor, the one with the chocolate lava cake you love," he added to Lily, who smiled in response. As they headed toward the door, Emily called out, "Jason, don't forget your medication." Jason rolled his eyes. "Already packed it, Mom." The ADHD diagnosis had come 3 months before Mark moved out. Emily sometimes wondered if the stress of their deteriorating marriage had contributed to Jason's struggles in school. The medication helped, but consistency at home would help more. Once they were gone, Emily stood in the suddenly quiet house, unsure what to do with her unexpected free day. Kate had suggested she use these kid-free weekends to date again, but the very thought exhausted her. Instead, she opened her laptop to tackle the stack of medical billing paperwork she'd brought home from the hospital. 2 hours into her administrative nightmare, Emily's phone buzzed with a text from Sandra, her lawyer. "Got the revised support agreement from Mark's attorney. Call me." Emily's stomach tightened. Despite Mark's courthouse promises, she'd been bracing for another legal battle. She dialed Sandra's number immediately. "It's actually good news," Sandra said after minimal pleasantries. "He's increasing the monthly amount by 20%, retroactive to last month." Emily sank into her kitchen chair. "Why would he do that?" "His note says it's to cover Jason's therapy and medication costs," Sandra replied. "Plus inflation adjustment. Want me to email you the details?" After hanging up, Emily stared at her phone, puzzled by Mark's unexpected generosity. The cynical part of her wondered if this was just to soothe his guilty conscience about the eventual move to Chicago. Her phone buzzed again, a text from Lily with a selfie of her. "Jason, and Mark standing in front of a massive model of Mars. All three were smiling. Jason's new Celtics cap prominently displayed. The caption read, "Mars Colony Exhibit is awesome." Jason actually smiled. Emily smiled too, despite herself. Whatever Mark's motivations, the kids were having a good day, and that was what mattered. The afternoon stretched ahead, quiet and unfamiliar. Emily couldn't remember the last time she'd had the house to herself without frantically catching up on chores or work. On impulse, she texted her friend Diane, a fellow nurse she'd grown close to during the separation. "Kids with Mark for the day. What's that wine bar you mentioned last week?" 20 minutes later, she was changed out of her loungewear and applying mascara for the first time in months. Diane had rounded up 2 other friends from the hospital, turning Emily's empty Saturday into an impromptu girls' day out. As they settled into a corner booth at Vino Verde, a trendy wine bar in Cambridge, Emily felt a weight lifting from her shoulders. She wasn't just Mark's ex-wife or Jason and Lily's stressed-out mom. She was Emily again, laughing over glasses of Pinot Noir with women who understood the juggling act of her life. To Freedom Saturdays, Diane toasted, clinking glasses with Emily. May they become a reliable tradition. "I'll drink to that," Emily replied. "But I'm not holding my breath." She recounted Mark's courthouse promise and his on-time arrival that morning. "Men always do better when their backs are against the wall," remarked Tessa, another nurse and a veteran of 2 divorces. "The question is whether it lasts once the pressure's off." Emily nodded, having wondered the same thing. "I guess time will tell. I'm trying not to be cynical for the kids' sake." "Being cautiously optimistic isn't the same as being naive," Diane assured her. "You can hope for the best while still protecting yourself." The conversation shifted to hospital gossip and Tessa's dating app disasters, giving Emily a much-needed break from her family drama. By the time they moved to a nearby restaurant for dinner, Emily felt more relaxed than she had in months. Her phone buzzed just as their appetizers arrived, a text from Mark. "Kids had a great time. Dropping them off around 8 instead of 7. Lily wants to finish her dessert." That okay. A year ago, such a message would have irritated Emily. Another example of Mark making unilateral decisions about their schedule. Now, she just texted back, "Fine. Have fun." "Progress?" Diane asked, noting Emily's expression. "Maybe," Emily replied, putting her phone away. "Or maybe I've just stopped expecting perfection." When she arrived home later that evening, the house was still empty. Emily kicked off her shoes and poured herself a glass of water, savoring the quiet. As much as she'd enjoyed her day with friends, she found herself watching the clock, eager for the kids to return with their stories and energy. At 8:15, headlights swept across the living room wall as Mark's car pulled into the driveway. Emily heard Jason's laugh, a rare sound these days, before the front door opened. "Mom, you won't believe what happened at the museum," Lily exclaimed, rushing in first. This astronaut lady was there, a real one who'd been to the International Space Station, and she let me try on her gloves. Jason followed, animated in a way Emily hadn't seen in months. "And she said NASA's looking for medical researchers for the next Mars mission simulations. I could totally do that after college." Emily smiled, absorbing their excitement. "That sounds amazing. I want to hear everything." Mark stood in the doorway, watching the scene with an expression Emily couldn't quite read, pride mixed with something like longing. For a moment, she caught a glimpse of the man she'd married, the father who'd once spent hours building rocket models with Jason and reading space books to Lily. "They had a good time," he said softly, meeting Emily's eyes. "Thank you for letting me take them." The simple acknowledgement that this time with their children was a privilege, not a right, caught Emily off guard. She nodded, not trusting her voice. As the kids bounded upstairs to put away their things, Mark lingered in the entryway. "Emily, there's something else we should discuss." About the Chicago situation. Emily steeled herself, gesturing for Mark to follow her into the kitchen where they could speak privately. Whatever news he had about Chicago, she wanted to hear it without the kids listening from the stairs. "Coffee," she offered, more out of habit than hospitality. Mark shook his head. "I can't stay long. Becca's waiting at the apartment." Emily nodded, leaning against the counter. "So, Chicago?" Mark took a deep breath. "I turned down the transfer." The statement hung in the air between them, simple yet monumental. Emily studied his face, searching for signs of resentment or regret, but found only quiet resolution. "What about the promotion?" she finally asked. They offered me a lateral move to the New York office instead, Mark explained. It's not the same boost in title or salary, but it's only a 4-hour drive from Boston. I can commute for the week and be back every weekend. Emily absorbed this information, unsure how to respond. After months of anger and disappointment, she found herself unexpectedly moved by his sacrifice. What did Becca say about this? Mark's expression tightened. She's not thrilled. She had her heart set on the Chicago house, the fresh start. He paused. But she's coming around. The baby complicates things, but we'll make it work. New York has excellent hospitals and doctors. I'm surprised, Emily admitted. I didn't think you'd actually do it. Neither did I, Mark said with a rueful smile. But seeing the kids today, watching Jason get excited about space again, hearing Lily laugh, I couldn't go through with it. They need stability right now, not a father who flies in for occasional weekends. From upstairs came the sound of Jason's music and Lily's voice on the phone, likely updating her best friend about the day's adventures. Normal teenage sounds that had been in short supply lately. Thank you, Emily said quietly. They need you here. Mark nodded, his eyes suspiciously bright. I've made a lot of mistakes, Emily. Leaving them would have been the biggest one yet. An uncomfortable silence settled between them, laden with the weight of their shared history and irrevocable changes. Emily wondered if Mark was thinking about their marriage. What might have been saved if he'd reached this realization sooner? Have you told them about New York? She asked. Not yet. I wanted to talk to you first, Mark replied. I'm planning to start in 3 weeks. I'll get a small place there to stay during the week. Emily nodded. We should tell them together. Maybe tomorrow before you drop them off. That would be good. Mark checked his watch. I should go? Thanks for today. As Emily walked him to the door, he paused. By the way, your sister mentioned you might need help with the mortgage refinancing. Is that true? Emily shot a mental note to throttle Kate for discussing their financial situation with Mark. It's under control. If you need me to co-sign until the divorce is finalized, I will, Mark offered. It's still the kids' home too. The unexpected offer left Emily speechless. She'd been battling the bank for weeks, trying to refinance on her nursing salary alone. Mark's income as a co-signer would solve the problem immediately. I'll think about it, she finally said. Thank you. After Mark left, Emily sank onto the couch, emotionally drained. The day had delivered too many surprises. Mark's punctuality, the kids' joy, the abandoned Chicago plan, and now this mortgage offer. Her defenses, carefully built over 6 months of betrayal and legal battles, felt suddenly unstable. Lily appeared in the doorway, now in pajamas with her hair wet from a shower. Was Dad just leaving? Yes, he needed to get back. Emily patted the space beside her. Did you have a good time today? Lily curled up next to her, smelling of strawberry shampoo. It was the best day in forever, Mom. Dad was really there, you know? Not checking his phone every 5 minutes or making work calls. Emily stroked her daughter's damp hair. I'm glad, sweetie. Do you think he'll stay that way? Lily asked, her voice smaller. Or is he just being nice until he leaves? The question stabbed at Emily's heart. She wanted to promise that Mark had changed for good, that he'd never disappoint them again. But she couldn't bring herself to make guarantees she couldn't keep. Your dad loves you very much, she said carefully. He's trying to make better choices. Lily seemed to consider this. Because of the custody thing? Or because he actually wants to? I think both, Emily admitted. Sometimes people need a wake-up call to realize what really matters. Lily nodded against her shoulder. Jason's still mad at him. He pretended to have fun today, but I could tell he's waiting for Dad to mess up again. Your brother's been hurt, Emily said. He needs time. We all got hurt, Lily pointed out with the blunt wisdom of 14. But we still have to move on, right? Emily hugged her daughter closer. Right. One day at a time. The next morning brought another surprise. Mark arrived for breakfast, bearing bagels and coffee, before taking the kids to the park. Emily used the opportunity to call her sister. So, Mark's not moving to Chicago after all, she said when Kate answered. No way, Kate exclaimed. Did he finally grow a conscience? Apparently, Emily replied, recounting yesterday's revelations. And thanks for telling him about my mortgage issues, by the way. Kate had the grace to sound sheepish. Sorry about that. It came up when he called to ask about Jason's birthday next month. He wanted gift ideas. He remembered Jason's birthday is coming up? Emily couldn't hide her surprise. Mark had missed Lily's birthday completely during the early chaos of their separation. He did, Kate confirmed. He even mentioned maybe doing something special since it's Jason's 18th. I think seeing those lawyers and the custody hearing scared him straight. Maybe. Emily wasn't ready to fully believe in Mark's transformation. Anyway, he's taking a job in New York instead. Weekly commute, back on weekends. And Becca's on board with this? He says she is. Emily shrugged, though her sister couldn't see it. Who knows? The baby complicates everything. Kate was quiet for a moment. How are you feeling about all this? It was the question Emily had been avoiding. Confused, she finally admitted. For months, I've focused all my energy on fighting him, protecting the kids, staying angry enough to get through each day. Now I don't know what to feel. You can still be angry, Kate reminded her. He cheated Emily with someone young enough to be his intern. That doesn't go away just because he's finally stepping up as a father. I know, Emily sighed. But the kids were so happy yesterday. Seeing them like that again. She trailed off. Don't mistake making peace with forgiving everything, Kate warned. And definitely don't mistake it for reconciliation. Trust me, that's not on the table, Emily assured her, though a small, traitorous part of her wondered if Kate had read something in her voice. The divorce is proceeding. This is just a different kind of co-parenting than I expected. After hanging up, Emily wandered through the quiet house, straightening pillows and gathering scattered shoes. In the living room, her gaze fell on a framed photo she hadn't been able to bring herself to remove. The four of them at Cape Cod 2 summers ago, laughing on the beach. Before Mark's affair, before the separation, before their family fractured. Would there be new happy memories now? Different, but still meaningful? The thought was both hopeful and melancholy. By the time Mark returned with the kids that afternoon, Emily had prepared herself for their family discussion. They gathered in the living room, an echo of that terrible day when Mark had announced his Chicago plans. Your father has something to tell you, Emily began, nodding at Mark. Mark leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I've decided not to take the Chicago position. Jason's head snapped up. For real? What about Becca? She'll be staying here too, Mark replied. I'm taking a job at our New York office instead. I'll be there during the week, but home every weekend and holidays. Lily's face brightened. So you're not moving far away? No, sweetheart. I'll be 4 hours away by train or car. Close enough to be at your soccer finals and Jason's graduation. Jason studied his father skeptically. What changed your mind? Mark met his son's gaze directly. You did. Both of you. I realized what I'd be losing by moving so far away. Some things are more important than a promotion. Emily watched Jason process this, witnessed the flicker of hope warring with lingering distrust. But what about the baby? He finally asked. Won't it be weird having a half-sibling who lives in a different state? The baby will be here in Boston, Mark clarified. Becca and I will make it work with the New York commute, at least until after the birth. The implication that their arrangement might change later hung unaddressed in the air. Emily caught Mark's eye, raising an eyebrow slightly. He gave a small shrug that said, one problem at a time. Does this mean we'll see you every weekend now? Lily asked, hopeful uncertainty in her voice. That's the plan, Mark assured her. I've already talked to Judge Harmon about amending the custody schedule. Jason stood abruptly. I've got homework to finish. Before leaving the room, he paused at the doorway. But that's good, I guess. About New York. After he left, Lily hugged her father, then followed her brother upstairs, leaving Emily and Mark alone again. That went better than I expected, Mark observed. Jason needs time, Emily said. He's heard promises before. Mark nodded, accepting the implicit criticism. I know, but I meant what I said. I'm going to be here for them, consistently. I hope so, Emily replied. She hesitated, then added, for what it's worth, I think you're making the right choice. Something in Mark's expression softened. Coming from you, that means a lot. As he prepared to leave, Mark paused at the door. By the way, I meant what I said about helping with the mortgage. No strings attached. Emily considered his offer. Pride urged her to refuse, but practicality won out. I'll have my loan officer call you tomorrow. Mark nodded. Good. And Emily? Thank you for not turning them against me. You had every right to, but you didn't. After he left, Emily sat alone in the sudden quiet of the house, thinking about forgiveness and its many complicated forms. She wasn't ready to forgive Mark for destroying their marriage, for the humiliation and heartbreak of his affair. But perhaps she could begin to forgive him for his failings as a co-parent, especially if he continued to make amends. Upstairs, she heard Jason's door open and his footsteps crossing to Lily's room. Their muffled voices drifted down the stairs, not arguing for once, but talking, processing together as they so often had during the worst days of the separation. Emily smiled faintly. However complicated the road ahead might be, her children were resilient. And maybe, just maybe, their family could be too. Not as it was before, but in a new configuration built on clearer understanding and hard-earned wisdom. For months passed in a blur of cautious adjustment. Autumn leaves gave way to Boston's first snow as the Morgan family settled into their new normal. Mark kept his promise, returning every Friday evening and staying until Sunday night before heading back to his small Manhattan apartment. The consistency alone was revolutionary. No last-minute cancellations, no disappointed children left waiting by windows. Emily watched this transformation with guarded optimism. The mortgage refinancing had gone through with Mark's help, easing her financial strain considerably. Her work schedule had stabilized too, with fewer emergency double shifts now that she wasn't scrambling to cover every bill alone. On a crisp December Saturday, Emily was folding laundry when her phone buzzed with a text from Mark. Meeting with Jason's English teacher went well, taking him to lunch to celebrate the B+ on his paper. Lily at Rachel's house until 3. You free to talk later? Need your input on something. Emily texted back a simple sure, wondering what he wanted to discuss. Their conversations had become primarily practical over the past months: schedule coordination, school updates, financial arrangements, with little of the bitterness that had characterized their early separation. The front door opened around 2 o'clock, and Jason walked in, his cheeks flushed from the cold, a satisfied expression on his face. How was lunch? Emily asked, setting aside the laundry basket. Pretty good, Jason replied, unwinding his scarf. Dad took me to that new burger place near Fenway. The teacher said my analysis of The Great Gatsby showed real insight, or whatever. Emily smiled at his attempt to downplay the praise. That's great, Jason. I'm proud of you. He shrugged, but she caught his small smile. Dad's waiting in the car. Says he needs to talk to you about something. Curious, Emily grabbed her coat and headed outside. Mark's BMW idled in the driveway, warm air blasting from the heater. She slid into the passenger seat, closing the door against the winter chill. Jason seems pleased about his English grade, she said as Mark turned down the radio. He should be. The teacher said it's his best work of the semester, Mark replied. But that's not why I wanted to talk. He paused, seeming to gather his thoughts. Becca had her ultrasound yesterday. We're having a girl. Emily absorbed this information, noting with mild surprise that it didn't hurt as much as she'd expected. Congratulations, she said sincerely. Have you told the kids yet? Mark shook his head. I wanted to talk to you first. About how to approach it. He tapped his fingers nervously on the steering wheel. Lily seems curious about the baby, but Jason still tenses up whenever it's mentioned. He's protective, Emily explained. Of me, of our family unit. A baby makes your new relationship more permanent in his eyes. Mark nodded. I understand that. But I want them both to be part of her life. I don't want two separate families that never intersect. Emily studied him thoughtfully. 6 months ago, she would have said that Mark wanted whatever was easiest for him, regardless of the impact on others. Now, she wasn't so sure. How about we tell them together at dinner, she suggested. Neutral territory, like that Italian place they both like. I could join you. Show them I'm okay with it. Mark's eyebrows rose in surprise. You do that? This baby is going to be their half-sister, Emily said simply. They need to know I don't resent her existence, even if I'm still working through my feelings about the situation. Relief washed over Mark's face. Thank you, Emily. That would help a lot. She nodded, reaching for the door handle. One more thing. Have you and Becca decided on a name? We're thinking Sophia, Mark replied, after Becca's grandmother. It's a beautiful name, Emily said, stepping out of the car. Let me know about dinner. That evening, as she helped Lily with a science project, Emily found herself contemplating the strange evolution of her relationship with Mark. The white-hot rage of betrayal had gradually cooled into something more manageable, not forgiveness exactly, but a kind of détente that allowed them to co-parent effectively. Mom, Lily's voice pulled her from her thoughts. Is something wrong? You've been staring at that glue stick for like 5 minutes. Emily smiled, handing it over. Just thinking, honey. Dad mentioned you've been spending time with Becca on Saturdays sometimes. Lily focused intently on attaching a paper moon to her solar system model. Yeah, when Dad has those work calls. She's not as awful as I thought she'd be. She glanced up at Emily. Is that okay to say? Of course it is, Emily assured her. You're allowed to form your own opinion of her. Lily hesitated. She showed me pictures of the baby ultrasound thing. It looked like a little alien. Emily laughed. They always do at that stage. Were mine and Jason's ultrasound pictures that weird looking? Absolutely. Emily confirmed, reaching for her phone. I think I still have them in my digital albums somewhere. They sat together scrolling through old photos, Lily giggling at the fuzzy images of herself in utero. It struck Emily as surreal, yet strangely healing to be sharing these memories in the context of Mark's new baby. The next evening found them at Lucia's, the family's longtime favorite Italian restaurant. Mark had reserved a quiet corner booth, and Becca was noticeably absent, a wise decision that Emily appreciated. As they worked their way through garlic bread and pasta, Mark caught Emily's eye, silently asking if it was time. She gave a slight nod. So, Mark began, setting down his fork. I have some news to share with both of you. Jason immediately tensed, while Lily looked between her parents curiously. The baby's ultrasound showed everything is healthy and developing well, Mark continued. And we found out we're having a girl. Your sister's name will be Sophia. A heavy silence followed. Emily took a deliberate bite of her lasagna, hoping to model calm acceptance. A sister? Lily repeated, processing this information. When exactly is she coming? April 10th is the due date, Mark replied. Though first babies are often late. Jason pushed pasta around his plate. So what does this mean for us? Are weekends going to be all about the baby now? Mark met his son's challenging gaze. No, Jason. My time with you and Lily remains a priority. There will be adjustments, of course, but we'll figure them out together. Your father and I have been talking, Emily added, surprising herself with the intervention. And we think it's important that you both have a relationship with your sister, whatever that looks like. Jason's eyes widened slightly at his mother's support of the idea. You're okay with this? Emily chose her words carefully. The circumstances aren't what any of us would have chosen. But the baby herself is innocent in all this. And she's going to need her big brother and sister. Lily perked up at this framing. I could help with her. I've been babysitting for the Hendersons' toddler, so I know about diapers and stuff. I'm sure she'd love that, Mark said warmly. Jason remained quiet, but some of the tension had left his shoulders. After a moment, he asked, Does this mean Becca will be at weekend stuff now too? Sometimes, Mark acknowledged. But I'll still have time with just the three of us. That won't change. By the time they ordered dessert, the conversation had moved on to Jason's college applications and Lily's upcoming soccer tournament. Emily caught Mark watching her with gratitude in his eyes, which she acknowledged with a small nod. Whatever their personal grievances, they were managing to put their children first. Outside the restaurant, as the kids walked ahead to the car, Mark hung back with Emily. Thank you for that, he said quietly. I know this can't be easy. Emily watched her children. Almost grown now, Jason's shoulders nearly as broad as Mark's, Lily's profile increasingly reminiscent of her own mother's. We're their parents, she said simply. That doesn't change, no matter what else does. Mark nodded. Emily, there's something else. My lease in New York is up next month. He paused. I'm moving back to Boston full-time. The firm is letting me work remotely with monthly trips to the office. Emily absorbed this news. What about Becca? The baby? They're the reason I'm moving back, Mark explained. The doctor found some complications, minor ones, but enough that Becca needs more consistent prenatal care. The weekly commute isn't sustainable anymore. I see, Emily said, processing the implications. Will you be getting a place nearby? For the kids' sake. Actually, I found a townhouse about 15 minutes from you, Mark replied. Close enough for convenience, but not. He trailed off awkwardly. Not so close it feels like you're hovering. Emily finished for him. That sounds reasonable. They walked in silence for a few steps, their breath visible in the cold air. How are you really doing with all this? Mark asked suddenly. Not just the polite co-parent version. The question caught Emily off guard. For months, they'd carefully avoided any conversation about their personal feelings, sticking to practical matters involving the kids. Honestly, it's complicated, she admitted. There are days I'm still angry about how everything happened, but there are also days when I'm grateful for where we've ended up. She glanced at him. You're a better father now than you were during our last years of marriage. The kids need that version of you. Mark looked pained by her assessment, but nodded. I should have done better back then. For all of you. We both made mistakes, Emily said, surprised by her own willingness to share the blame. I was so focused on the kids, on work, on keeping everything running that I stopped seeing you. Really seeing you. That doesn't excuse what I did, Mark insisted. No, it doesn't, Emily agreed. But I've had a lot of time to think about how we got here. It wasn't just one decision or one mistake. They reached the car where the kids waited, effectively ending their conversation. As Emily turned to leave, Mark touched her arm lightly. Kate mentioned you're taking some photography classes, he said. That's great, Em. You always had a good eye. The use of her old nickname, the acknowledgement of a passion she'd set aside during their marriage. It created a strange ache in Emily's chest, nostalgic yet not exactly painful. Thanks, she said simply. It's nice to have something that's just for me again. Over the following weeks, as Mark's move back to Boston became reality, Emily found herself navigating yet another adjustment in their evolving family dynamic. Having him 15 minutes away instead of 4 hours changed things in subtle ways, like his ability to attend Jason's basketball games on Tuesday nights, or to pick up Lily from late soccer practice when Emily was working. One snowy evening in January, Emily arrived home from a 12-hour hospital shift to find her kitchen lights on. Inside, Jason and Mark stood at the counter chopping vegetables while Lily set the table. The scene was so reminiscent of their old family life that Emily froze in the doorway, momentarily disoriented. Mom's home, Lily announced, spotting her first. Mark looked up from the cutting board. Hope you don't mind. The kids mentioned you were working late, so we thought we'd have dinner ready when you got home. Dad's making his famous stir-fry, Jason added, his tone casual, but his expression seeking her approval. Thank you. Emily managed, hanging up her coat. Let me just wash up. In the bathroom, she stared at her reflection, wondering at the strange confluence of emotions churning inside her. There was gratitude for the practical help, confusion at the domestic scene she'd walked into, and a complicated sort of grief for what they'd lost. What they could have been if things had gone differently. When she returned to the kitchen, Lily was telling Mark about her history project, while Jason added ingredients to the wok with surprising competence. When did you learn to cook? Emily asked her son, genuinely curious. Dad's been teaching me, Jason replied. Since he moved back. Says I can't live on ramen in college. Emily raised an eyebrow at Mark, who shrugged. Seemed like a useful skill. We started with scrambled eggs and worked our way up. Throughout dinner, Emily observed the easy rapport that had developed between Mark and the kids, a relationship that seemed healthier, somehow, than during their marriage. The irony wasn't lost on her. After the kids retreated upstairs, Emily helped Mark load the dishwasher in comfortable silence. How's Becca feeling? She asked eventually. Better, Mark replied. The extra rest has helped with her blood pressure issues. He hesitated. She asked me to thank you, actually. For what? For being understanding. About the move back, about involving the kids with the baby. Mark handed her a rinsed plate. Not everyone would be so gracious in your position. Emily considered this as she arranged the plate in the dishwasher. I won't pretend it's always easy, she admitted. But bitterness is exhausting, Mark. I got tired of carrying it. He nodded, understanding in his eyes. For what it's worth, I think the kids are doing better now, with the consistency, with us communicating instead of fighting. I think so too, Emily agreed. It's not the family structure I imagined they'd have, but maybe it's one that can work. As Mark gathered his coat to leave, he paused at the door. Becca's having a small baby shower next month. Nothing fancy, just a few friends. He seemed nervous suddenly. She wondered if you might want to come. No pressure at all if that's too weird. Emily blinked in surprise. That is definitely too weird, Mark. He laughed, the tension broken. Yeah, that's what I told her. But she insisted I ask. Tell her I appreciate the gesture, Emily said, smiling despite herself. But I think we're still a few years away from that level of modern family harmony. After he left, Emily climbed the stairs to check on the kids. She found them both in Jason's room. Lily sprawled on the bed with a textbook while Jason worked at his computer. Everything okay? She asked, leaning against the doorframe. They both looked up, expressions unusually pensive. Is it weird having Dad here like this? Jason asked suddenly. Cooking dinner and everything? Emily considered the question. A little, she admitted. But not in a bad way, necessarily. Are you guys getting back together? Lily asked bluntly. No, honey, Emily said firmly. That's not happening. But you don't hate each other anymore, Lily persisted. Emily moved into the room, sitting on the edge of Jason's bed. We don't hate each other, she confirmed. We're trying to be good parents and respectful co-parents. That's different from reconciling. Jason studied her face. Are you okay, though? With all of it? Dad moving back, the baby coming soon? The question touched Emily deeply. Her teenage son, in the midst of his own complicated emotions, checking on her well-being. I'm okay, she assured him, reaching out to squeeze his hand. It's been a long road, but I think we're all finding our way to something better. Different, but better in its own way. Later that night, as she got ready for bed, Emily caught sight of their old family photo still sitting on her dresser. After a moment's consideration, she moved it to her closet shelf, not hidden away, but no longer prominently displayed. In its place, she set a new frame containing a recent photo of Jason and Lily at Thanksgiving, their smiling faces reflecting the hard-won peace their family had begun to find. They were building something new from the rubble of what had broken, not a perfect reconstruction, but a structure with its own kind of strength, designed to weather future storms with the wisdom that comes only from having survived the worst.